Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The sun dipped below the horizon in Port Charles, casting an orange glow over the town that seemed to mirror the tension simmering beneath its surface. The events of the past week had left the residents reeling, and the question on everyone's lips was the same: who shot Drew Cain? The congressman, once a heroic Navy SEAL, had become a polarizing figure, his actions sowing discord and destruction across the lives of nearly everyone in town. Now, as he lay in a hospital bed fighting for his life, the mystery of his would-be killer dominated conversations from the docks to General Hospital's bustling corridors. But the drama didn't end with the gunshots that rang out in his home. Whispers of a memorial service and the revelation of his heirs added a new layer of intrigue, pulling Port Charles deeper into a web of secrets, lies, and long-buried truths. The night of the shooting, September 2, 2025, was one that would be etched into the town's collective memory. Drew Cain, played by Cameron Matheson, had been alone in his lavish home, a glass of whiskey in hand, staring at a framed photo of himself with Willow Tate. The air was heavy with the weight of his recent sins. Blackmail, manipulation, and betrayal had turned him into a pariah. He had just retrieved Lila's wedding ring from his safe, lost in a moment of nostalgia, when the first gunshot shattered the silence. The bullet struck him in the back, sending him crumpling to the floor. Before he could process the pain, a second shot followed, ensuring the attacker's intent was clear: Drew was meant to die. Trina Robinson and Kai Taylor, hiding in a nearby bedroom as they searched for evidence of Drew's blackmail schemes, froze in terror as the shots echoed through the house. They didn't see the shooter, but the shadow cast on the wall suggested a figure with purpose, someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The aftermath was chaos. Trina and Kai, shaken but unharmed, debated whether to call 911, knowing their presence in Drew's home could raise questions they weren't ready to answer. Meanwhile, word of the shooting spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of Anna Devane and Dante Falconeri, who arrived at the scene to begin their investigation. The Port Charles Police Department was no stranger to high-profile crimes, but this case felt different. Drew's list of enemies was so long it could fill the phone book, and every lead seemed to point to a new suspect. Anna, ever the seasoned investigator, asked Dante, "How many people do you think want Drew Cain dead?" His response was grim but honest: "That's a long list." And so, the hunt for the shooter began, with the entire town under scrutiny. The suspects were plentiful, each with a motive rooted in Drew's relentless campaign of chaos. Portia Robinson, a respected doctor at General Hospital, had been pushed to her breaking point by Drew's blackmail. He had evidence that she tampered with Heather Weber's blood test results to keep her imprisoned, a secret that threatened her career, her marriage to Curtis Ashford, and her relationship with her daughter, Trina. Portia's desperation was palpable, and her absence from the bar around the time of the shooting raised eyebrows. Could she have taken matters into her own hands to protect her family? Curtis, too, had reason to want Drew gone. Drew's schemes had not only targeted Portia but also cost Curtis his position at Aurora, fueling a year-long feud that culminated in Curtis vowing to do whatever it takes to protect his loved ones. His conversation with Alexis Davis, where they both agreed Drew had crossed every line, hinted at a man on the edge, capable of drastic action. Then there was Nina Reeves, whose complicated history with Drew made her a prime suspect. Their affair, born out of mutual disdain, had spiraled into a toxic web of manipulation. When Nina learned Drew was involved with her daughter, Willow Tate, she tried to sabotage him by hiring Jacinda to drug him with ketamine, hoping to ruin his public image. Drew retaliated by blackmailing Nina, threatening to expose her role in the scandal. Her knowledge of the shooting before it hit the news, coupled with her flimsy alibi about overhearing nurses, didn't help her case. Nina's protective instincts as a mother were fierce. Had she decided to eliminate Drew to save Willow from his grasp? Willow herself couldn't be ruled out. Her life had been upended by Drew's actions, from his affair with her mother to his role in her losing custody of her children, Wiley and Amelia. Though she initially saw Drew as her only hope to regain her kids, learning the truth about his betrayal sent her into a spiral. Her absence during the shooting and her erratic behavior afterward made Elizabeth Weber suspicious. "Where have you been?" Elizabeth asked, her tone laced with concern and doubt. Willow's defensiveness only deepened the speculation. Could her desperation have driven her to pull the trigger, or was she simply a victim of circumstance? Michael Corinthos, Willow's estranged husband, had his own reasons to despise Drew. The congressman's affair with Willow was a personal betrayal, and his attempts to alienate Michael from his children added fuel to the fire. Michael's presence at Drew's house the night of the shooting, as revealed by Tracy Quartermaine, made him a person of interest. Tracy urged him to find an alibi, warning that being caught up in the investigation could devastate Monica. Michael's search for the woman he was with at the bar that night yielded little, and his determination to keep Willow away from Drew suggested he was willing to go to great lengths to protect his family. But how far was too far? Alexis Davis, ever the fierce protector of her daughters, emerged as another compelling suspect. Drew's restraining order barring her from her granddaughter, Scout, struck a nerve, and her fury was compounded by his plans to relocate to D.C. with Scout in tow. Alexis's legal expertise made her a master at covering her tracks, but her refusal to answer Dante's questions without a lawyer present raised red flags. Rumors swirled that she might be holding Rick Lansing captive in her basement, a complication that could unravel any alibi she tried to craft. Some even speculated she might frame Sonny Corinthos, capitalizing on his offhand remark that Drew would get what's coming to him. Sonny himself wasn't above suspicion, given his history of taking matters into his own hands when it came to protecting his family. As the investigation deepened, other names surfaced. Carly Corinthos, who had threatened Drew's life in front of Elizabeth, was panicked about being implicated. Her visit to Jack Brennan's office, where she admitted to making a huge mistake with Drew, hinted at her fear of being seen as the shooter. Jens Sidwell, a shadowy figure tied to deception, had his own motives, as did Marco, whose connections to Drew's schemes remained murky. Even Scout Quartermaine, Drew's young daughter, was floated as a wild-card suspect by some fans, though her small stature and absence at a sleepover made it unlikely. More intriguing was the theory that Monica Quartermaine, despite her fragile health, could be involved. With the recent passing of Leslie Charleson, the show faced the challenge of writing off her character. Some speculated that Monica, driven by disgust at Drew's behavior, might have orchestrated the shooting through her loyal manservant, Yuri, before confessing on her deathbed to protect him. But the most shocking theory came from the fringes. Jacinda, the woman Nina had hired to drug Drew earlier in the year, had returned to Port Charles. Her sudden reappearance, coupled with her ability to blackmail both Nina and Portia, made her a dangerous wild card. Had she confronted Drew, demanding payment to keep quiet about the ketamine incident, only to shoot him when he refused? Her status as a disposable character made her an appealing candidate for the shooter, as it wouldn't disrupt the show's core cast. Yet, the possibility of misdirection loomed large. Could Jacinda be a red herring, distracting from the true culprit? As Drew clung to life in the hospital, the drama took an unexpected turn. Rumors of a memorial service began to circulate, suggesting that his fate might already be sealed. But in true soap opera fashion, the service wasn't just about mourning, it was a stage for revelations. Whispers about Drew's heirs surfaced, raising questions about his legacy and who stood to gain from his potential demise. Scout, his daughter, was the obvious heir, but Drew's complicated family ties hinted at others who might emerge. The Quartermaine family, already fractured by Drew's actions, braced for the fallout. Tracy's insistence on shielding Monica from the truth about Drew's condition underscored the family's precarious state, but Monica's knack for uncovering secrets suggested she wouldn't stay in the dark for long. The memorial service, whether real or staged, promised to be a turning point. If Drew survived, it could be a ploy to draw out the shooter, forcing them to reveal themselves. If he didn't, the service would serve as a battleground for Port Charles's power players, each vying for control of his assets and influence. The mention of heirs added another layer of intrigue. Could there be a hidden beneficiary, someone tied to Drew's past as a Navy SEAL or his tangled romantic history? The possibility of a long-lost relative or secret child wasn't out of the question, given the show's penchant for dramatic twists. At General Hospital, the staff worked tirelessly to save Drew, but even they weren't immune to the drama. Lucas Jones, despite his personal disdain for Drew, went into doctor mode, assisted by a visibly distracted Portia. During the surgery, Drew briefly flatlined, only to be revived by Portia's quick thinking. Her guilt-ridden expression didn't go unnoticed, fueling speculation that she might know more than she was letting on. Meanwhile, Willow's erratic behavior continued to draw scrutiny, with Lucas and Elizabeth keeping a close eye on her. Nina's attempt to provide Willow with a fake alibi only complicated matters, as it suggested she might be covering for her daughter, or herself. Outside the operating room, the investigation gained momentum. Anna and Dante sifted through clues, from the fingerprint-covered baseball bat Trina and Kai had overlooked to the destroyed documents they'd burned to protect Portia. Stella's interruption, prompted by the smell of smoke, nearly exposed their actions, and her suspicion that Curtis might be the shooter added another layer of tension. Alexis, meanwhile, claimed to have been with Rick Lansing all evening, but her daughters, Ava and Christina, seemed uneasy about corroborating her story. The PCPD's track record for solving crimes wasn't stellar, and fans were skeptical that the truth would come to light anytime soon. As one viewer put it, the last time the PCPD solved a case, I was still in high school. Theories abounded, both in Port Charles and among the show's fervent fanbase. Some speculated that Drew might have orchestrated the shooting himself, a desperate bid to garner sympathy and deflect suspicion. Others pointed to a possible dissociative identity disorder storyline for Willow, imagining an alter ego taking aim at Drew. Social media buzzed with wild theories, from Monica's sister making a surprise debut as the shooter to a resurrected Julian Jerome seeking revenge for his granddaughter, Scout. The show's writers seemed to revel in the chaos, drawing parallels to the iconic Who Shot JR? Storyline from Dallas. Cameron Matheson himself leaned into the drama, telling Soap Opera Digest, "Everybody hates me like crazy, but they had to make Drew despicable to justify this kind of story. I'm super excited about it." As the week progressed, the stakes only grew higher. Drew, now awake, was determined to pin the shooting on Michael, claiming a sudden memory of his nephew as the culprit. Willow warned him that the real shooter might strike again, but Drew was willing to take the risk to secure custody of her children. His plan to frame Michael backfired when the PCPD began to suspect they had the wrong man, especially if another attack occurred while Michael was in custody. The possibility of multiple shooters, a hallmark of General Hospital's penchant for convoluted plots, couldn't be dismissed. After all, as one fan noted, in Port Charles, even the hospital isn't safe. Look at what happened to Sonny and Sam McCall. The ripple effects of Drew's shooting touched every corner of Port Charles. Trina's fear for her mother and Curtis drove her to take drastic steps, while Kai's loyalty was tested as he navigated the fallout. Carly's guilt over her threats against Drew made her a reluctant ally to Jack, who was grappling with his own mysteries in Croatia. Britt Westbourne's cryptic warning to wait until he gets back hinted at a larger conspiracy, possibly involving Pascal or Tomas, while Jocelyn and Vaughn's captivity added another layer of danger. The death of Judge Heron, found strangled in the harbor, only deepened the intrigue, with suspicions falling on everyone from Sonny to an unknown player pulling strings behind the scenes. The rain fell in relentless sheets over Port Charles, turning the cemetery into a sodden tapestry of grief and gray. Umbrellas bobbed like black mushrooms among the mourners gathered around the polished mahogany casket, its lid sealed against the downpour as if to preserve the illusion that death could be contained. Drew Kane lay within, his life snuffed out not by age or illness, but by a bullet from an unseen hand, a sniper's whisper in the night that had echoed through the Quartermain estate like a thunderclap. The memorial service was meant to be a farewell, a communal exhale of sorrow, but whispers had already begun to swirl. Today, truths would surface. Today, the shooter would be unmasked, and the heirs, those shadowy figures who stood to inherit Drew's fractured legacy, would step into the light. Elizabeth Weber stood at the edge of the crowd, her white coat discarded for a simple black dress that clung to her like a second skin, damp from the rain. Her hands trembled as she clutched a single white rose, the petals wilting under the assault of the storm. She had loved Drew once, or at least convinced herself she had, in the tangled web of Port Charles affections where love was as fleeting as it was fierce. Now, as the officiant droned on about eternal rest and the fragility of life, her mind replayed the night of the shooting, the gala at the Metro Court, laughter bubbling like champagne, then the crack of gunfire shattering glass and illusions. Drew had slumped into her arms, his blue eyes locking onto hers with a final, unspoken plea. "Find out who," he'd gasped, blood blooming across his tuxedo shirt like a dark rose. Beside her, Jason Morgan shifted uncomfortably, his leather jacket beaded with rain, his face a mask of stoic fury. Jason had been Drew's brother in all but blood, twins separated by fate and reunited by fire. The Cassadine and Quartermain empires had pulled them apart, but loyalty had always bound them. Jason's fists clenched at his sides, he knew more than he let on, fragments of intel from his shadowy network of informants. The shooter wasn't just a hired gun, it was personal, a vendetta wrapped in corporate greed and old family sins. Across the way, Carly Corinthos leaned on Sunny's arm, her blonde hair plastered to her forehead, mascara streaking like war paint. She and Drew had shared a history of betrayals and boardroom battles, but in death, she mourned the man who'd once been her rock. Sunny's dark eyes scanned the crowd, ever the enforcer, whispering to Carly, "This ain't just a funeral, babe. It's a powder keg." And it was. The service was broadcast live on local news, courtesy of the Quartermain matriarch, Tracy, who believed in spectacle as much as strategy. Cameras hovered like vultures, capturing every tear, every sidelong glance. As the officiant concluded his eulogy, a hush fell, broken only by the patter of rain on umbrellas. Then, Monica Quartermain stepped forward, her silver hair impeccable despite the weather, her voice amplified by a portable microphone that crackled like static electricity. She was the family's anchor, the surgeon who'd stitched more than wounds, she'd mended egos, fortunes, and feuds. Drew Kane was more than a son-in-law, more than a soldier, she began, her tone steady but laced with steel. He was a fighter, a father, a man who deserved justice. And today, in his honor, we unveil the truths he fought to protect. The crowd murmured, umbrellas dipping as heads turned. Monica gestured to a man in a crisp suit, standing just behind the casket, an attorney from ELQ, the Quartermain conglomerate that Drew had helped steer through turbulent waters. The lawyer, Harold Finch, cleared his throat, unfolding a document sealed with Drew's own signet ring, its emblem a lion rampant, symbolizing the Kane resilience. By the terms of Andrew Kane's last will and testament, executed mere days before his death, certain revelations are to be made public at this memorial. First, regarding the identity of his shooter. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Elizabeth's rose slipped from her fingers, landing in a puddle that reflected the stormy sky. Jason's jaw tightened, he'd suspected as much. Finch continued, his voice rising above the rain. Investigations conducted by private security, overseen by Mr. Jason Morgan, have confirmed that the shot originated from the rooftop of the Metro Court, fired by a marksman employed by Victor Cassadine. The name landed like a grenade. Victor Cassadine, the ghost of Port Charles's darkest dynasty, presumed dead after a yacht explosion years prior, but Cassadines had a habit of resurrecting like phoenixes from ash. Murmurs erupted into shouts. "Impossible," cried Laura Spencer from the back, her mayoral poise cracking. "Victor's been gone." But Sunny's low growl cut through, "Not gone enough." Finch raised a hand for silence. Evidence includes ballistics matching a rifle traced to a Cassadine arms shipment, intercepted last month. Digital footprints link payments to a mercenary known as the Ghost, who confessed under interrogation, before his untimely demise, to acting on Victor's orders. Motive, to eliminate Drew as a threat to Cassadine reclamation of ELQ shares, which Drew had been quietly acquiring on behalf of the Quartermains. The revelation hung heavy, rain mingling with tears. Carly's grip on Sunny tightened, the Cassadines had plagued them all, from Helena's machinations to Valentine's schemes. But this was colder, more calculated, a sniper's bullet as corporate warfare. Jason stepped forward, his voice a gravelly rumble into the mic Finch handed him. "Victor's alive. I've got leads, sightings in Greece, encrypted comms bouncing off satellites. This ends now. For Drew." Applause mingled with sobs, a cathartic release. But Monica wasn't done. And now, the heirs. Drew's legacy wasn't just in ledgers, it was in blood and bonds. To his daughters, Scout Kane and, the child yet to be named. Elizabeth froze. Scout, her daughter with Drew, barely 4, stood clutching Franco's hand. No, not Franco, but the memory lingered. Actually, it was Cameron, her eldest, who held Scout's tiny umbrella. But the child yet to be named? Whispers turned to her. Months ago, in the haze of grief after the shooting, Elizabeth had discovered she was pregnant. Drew's final gift, conceived in a night of desperate passion before the gala. She'd kept it secret, fearing the dangers that shadowed their lives. Now, exposed. The crowd parted as Elizabeth was pulled forward by invisible strings of fate. Monica embraced her, whispering, "He wanted this. For them." Finch read on, to Scout Kane, full custody and guardianship to Elizabeth Weber, with trusteeship under Jason Morgan until maturity. To the unborn child equal shares in the Kane Trust, including 15% of ELQ voting stock, to be administered by Monica Quartermain until birth and majority. Elizabeth's hand instinctively went to her abdomen, the swell just beginning to show under her dress. The rain seemed to lighten, as if the heavens themselves acknowledged the shift. Scout toddled forward, her pigtails sodden, clutching a drawing of a superhero daddy with a cape. "Mommy, is Daddy watching?" she lisped, and Elizabeth knelt, pulling her close. "Always, baby. Always." But Port Charles being Port Charles, peace was fleeting. As the service dispersed, clusters formed under tents erected hastily by ELQ staff, catered spreads of finger sandwiches and champagne flutes, because even funerals demanded decorum. In one tent, the Quartermains huddled, Ned, ever the politician, plotting legal maneuvers against the Cassadines, Olivia, his wife, fussing over Leo, who asked innocent questions about Uncle Drew's big sleep. Tracy, cigarette in hand despite the no-smoking signs, sneered. Victor's slithered back? "I'll bury him myself this time." Nearby, the Spencers gathered, Luke long gone, but Laura with her sons, Lucky and Nicholas, Nick, the Cassadine prince, torn between loyalties. "If Victor's alive, he's gunning for Spoon Island," Nicholas muttered, his dark eyes stormy. Lucky clapped his shoulder. "Then we fortify." For Drew. Sonny and Carly retreated to a quieter corner, where Jason joined them, dripping water like a hound from the hunt. "We hit Victor's trail tonight," Jason said, pulling an encrypted phone from his pocket. "Got a contact in Athens, says Victor's holed up in a villa overlooking the Aegean, plotting his next move." Carly's eyes flashed. "And the heirs?" "Scout and that baby, they're targets now." Sonny nodded, his fedora tilted low. "We protect family. Always have." Elizabeth, meanwhile, found solace with her boys, Cameron, Jake, and Aiden, huddled under a larger tent with hot cocoa spiked with marshmallows. Scout napped in her lap, exhausted by the pomp. "Mom, you okay?" Cameron asked, his teenage wisdom cutting through. At 16, he remembered too much, his father's death, the endless cycle of loss. Elizabeth forced a smile. "Your dad, Drew, he made sure we're taken care of." "But it's the shooter. Victor. It changes everything." Jake, the artist, sketched idly on a napkin, a sniper's scope, crossed out with fierce strokes. Aiden, the youngest, hugged her leg. "We'll get him, Mom. Like in the movies." As the afternoon waned, the rain eased to a drizzle, and the true drama unfolded not under tents, but in the crypt-like quiet of the Quartermain mausoleum, where Drew's casket was interred. A select few remained, Monica, Jason, Elizabeth, and an unexpected guest, Sam McCall, Drew's ex-wife, her red hair aflame against the stone walls. Sam had arrived late, fashionably tragic in a trench coat, her detective instincts buzzing. She'd been working the case from the fringes, pulling strings with the PCPD. "Victor," Sam spat as the casket lowered with mechanical whirs. "I knew it smelled like Cassadine perfume, old money and older grudges." Jason nodded, their shared history a bridge over chasms of pain. They'd loved the same men, fought the same wars. Elizabeth watched them, a pang of jealousy mixing with solidarity. Women of Port Charles, bound by survival. Monica sealed the crypt, her key turning with finality. "The will's ironclad, but Victor will contest. Heirs mean leverage." Elizabeth's hand on her belly again, the baby kicked, as if sensing the storm. "What if he comes for them?" Sam stepped closer, fierce. "He won't. Not while we breathe." Night fell swiftly, the cemetery emptying like a theater after the curtain call. But for Jason, the play was just beginning. He slipped away to his penthouse, the one with bulletproof glass and escape routes mapped in his mind. Brick, his loyal brick of a bodyguard, waited with laptops humming. "Boss, got the flight manifest. Victor's jet touched down in Malta 2 days ago, under an alias, but the tail number matches." Jason's fingers flew over keys, hacking into satellite feeds with tools honed in his enforcer days. Images flickered, a fortified villa, guards patrolling cliffs, Victor's silhouette in a window, cigar glowing like a predator's eye. Meanwhile, at the Weber home, a cozy Victorian on the outskirts, far from the mansion intrigues, Elizabeth tucked Scout into bed, reading a story of brave knights and hidden treasures. The girl's eyelids drooped, but her question pierced, "Will the bad man come here?" Elizabeth's throat tightened. "No, sweetheart. Uncle Jason and Grandma Monica have magic shields." Lies, comforting ones, in a town where magic was just gunpowder and grit. Downstairs, the phone rang. "Carly." "Liz, pack bags. Sonny's got a safe house in the Adirondacks. Until we nail Victor." Elizabeth glanced at the ultrasound photo on the fridge, a blurry peanut, Drew's child. "I'm not running. Not anymore." Carly's sigh crackled through the line. Stubborn as he was. "Fine, but Jason's posting guards." Sleep evaded Elizabeth that night. She wanted the nursery to be, walls half-painted in soft blues, a crib assembled with Drew's own hands during a rare weekend of domesticity. He joked about names, Atlas for a boy, Strong as his father, Aurora for a girl, Dawn after darkness. Now, darkness loomed. Victor Cassadine, she'd met him once, at a gala, his charm oily, eyes like black ice. Helena's brother, Valentine's uncle, a man who'd toppled governments for sport. Dawn broke gray, and Port Charles stirred. The Invaders headline screamed, "Kane shooter unmasked, Cassadine resurrection." Reporters swarmed the Q mansion, where a press conference unfolded in the solarium. Ned fielded questions with polished evasion. ELQ stands united against threats. Justice will prevail. But Tracy, off mic, muttered to Dylan, her filmmaker's son, "Get the cameras rolling. This is Oscar-worthy drama." Across town, at the Floating Rib, the blue-collar heartbeat of the city, locals dissected the news over eggs and ale. Max Scorpio, police commissioner, nursed a coffee, his badge gleaming. "Victor's slippery, but we've got warrants. International cooperation." His wife, Felicia, the cat burglar turned mom, squeezed his hand. "Be careful, love. Cassadines play dirty." By midday, alliances formed like storm clouds. Laura Spencer called an emergency council meeting at City Hall, her gavel pounding. "Port Charles won't tolerate terrorism on our soil." Nicholas, conflicted, abstained, family ties binding like chains. But Lucky, the adventurer, volunteered for the grease op. "I've got contacts from my WSB days. Let's end this." Jason's plan coalesced in a war room at Sonny's warehouse, maps unrolled amid crates of imported olive oil, a front for less savory cargo. Sonny poured espresso, strong as resolve. "You fly out tonight. Take Dex, he's green but eager." Dex Miller, the young enforcer with a military past, nodded sharply. Carly paced, heels clicking. "And the heirs?" "Scout's school, Elizabeth's shifts at the hospital." "Covered," Jason cut in. "Spinelli's on cyber watch. Any chatter from Victor's network, we know." Elizabeth, at GH, scrubbed in for a routine appendectomy, but her mind wandered. The Your lights glared like spotlights, the monitors beeping a dirge. Dr. Hamilton Finn, her colleague and occasional confidant, noticed her distraction. "Weber, you with us?" Post-op, in the lounge, he pressed, "The memorial, the baby." "Drew's?" She nodded, tears pricking. "And Victor." "It's all crashing down." Finn, with his wry smile and hidden scars, offered, "Port Charles eats its young, but we endure. Name the kid after him, Drew Jr., kick in the teeth to the Cassadines." Afternoon brought unexpected visitors to Elizabeth's office, Sam and Spinelli, the geek genius in a Hawaiian shirt clashing with the sterile white. "Perimeter secured," Spinelli announced, laptop whirring. "But Victor's posting bounties, digital dark web stuff. On the Heirs." Sam's eyes hardened. "We move you to the McCall loft." Fortified. Elizabeth resisted, but Scout's safety won. Packing was a blur, onesies, sippy cups, the lion signet ring Drew had given her. As dusk fell, Jason boarded a private jet at the airstrip, Dex at his side, Lucky coordinating from the cockpit. The engines roared, lifting them toward the Mediterranean maelstrom. En route, Jason reviewed files, Victor's dossier, thick with atrocities, arms deals in the Balkans, bioweapon whispers, a trail of bodies from Wyoming to Wyoming. Drew had crossed him acquiring ELQ shares, diluting Cassadine influence. Revenge, pure and poisoned. In Greece, the villa perched like a crown on craggy cliffs, waves crashing below. Victor Cassadine, silver-haired and sharp as a stiletto, sipped ouzo on the terrace, his mistress, a lithe brunette named Esme, revived from her own watery grave, draped over his chair. "The Port Charles fools think they've cornered me," he chuckled, phone buzzing with updates. But the heirs? Leverage. Kidnap the spawn, ransom the stock. Esme's eyes gleamed, she'd clawed back from amnesia and betrayal, hungry for power. Jason's team infiltrated under cover of moonless night, speedboat slicing the sea. Dex scaled the wall, silenced pistol ready, Lucky picked the gate lock with picks from his spy kit. Jason, ghost in the shadows, moved like smoke. Alarms whispered, but they were ghosts too. Inside, guards fell silently, zip ties, gags. Victor's study, maps of ELQ holdings, a sniper rifle disassembled on the desk, the very one that felled Drew. Confrontation came swift. Victor whirled from his safe, pistol drawn, but Jason was faster, disarming him with a wrist snap. For Drew, Jason growled, fist connecting with jaw. Victor spat blood, laughing maniacally. "Brother's dead, twin. You're next." Dex zip-tied him, Lucky radioed for extraction, Greek authorities, tipped by Laura's diplomacy. Back in Port Charles, word spread like wildfire. The invader updated, Cassadine captured. Justice for Kane! Cheers erupted at Kelly's diner, toasts raised with onion rings and fries. Elizabeth, in Sam's loft, watched the feed, Scout clapping at the bad man in ropes. Relief washed over her, but grief lingered, a hollow in her chest. Weeks blurred into healing. Victor's trial loomed, extradition a bureaucratic ballet, but ELQ lawyers danced circles around defense. The heirs' announcement stabilized stocks, investors poured in, seeing strength in succession. Scout started preschool, chattering about mommy's tummy baby. Elizabeth chose Aurora, Dawn's promise. Jason returned scarred but whole, a new tattoo on his arm, a lion, for Drew. He visited the grave often, stones skipping on the pond nearby, a ritual. "We got him, brother. The girls are safe." Port Charles breathed easier, but scars faded slowly. Carly and Sonny renewed vows in a quiet ceremony, vowing against the darkness. Monica mentored Elizabeth in boardrooms, teaching her the cutthroat chess of legacy. Sam and Jason? Their dance continued, tentative steps toward something unspoken. One crisp autumn evening, as leaves turned gold, Elizabeth labored at GH, dawn breaking as Aurora Kane entered the world, wailing fierce. Jason stood vigil, then called the family. In the nursery, under soft lights, Elizabeth held her daughter, Drew's eyes staring back. "Your daddy's watching," she whispered. And in the wind through the window, she swore she heard his laugh. But Port Charles never sleeps soundly. Whispers of Valentine's return, Helena's hidden vaults, threats loomed. Yet for now, in the quiet after storm, the heirs thrived. Drew's legacy, not in death, but in the lives he sparked, unyielding as the rain that once mourned him.